Hello, everybody. Today in Process School, we had about 9 people here. We brought up 4 discussion points at the start. One was we talked about the slide decks. Actually, we didn't have any new activities we wanted to bring up. So we went to the last session and we went through all these tasks. First one was running the session of workshop session where we previously had a workshop format figured out how do we kind of get people using T-Work. But because of the Treasury Coil calls and the material brought out there, we felt like we already kind of had the material. And when we looked into like after activities, were like doing a video editing and summaries for that, there were a few people in the call who actually had more information that there was already some tasks related to that active. So in here, we created or had this discussion about using that material for onboarding calls and to strategy coil to kind of, hey, check this video out, check out that video out, and that links to the video material. So because this kind of task was taken out, like handed over to strategy coil or to so kind of already work on that, I moved that as a covered information so that in future we don't have to go over this unless we kind of somebody raises a question again, hey, we don't have this material, and we can come back to this. Second, we looked at the ambassador program opening slide. Last time we finished that, but the slide deck was not in use. However, meanwhile, there was more effort from marketing guild to use to create another version of this onboarding information. And so now there is still this ongoing action item to actually use that information. So let's keep it up and see, step back on next week, how this is progressing. Another thing we looked at was writing group, but now looking at the T-Work task, people are signing up and taking notice. Strategy Guild is also coming up where more of kind of our understanding around the work group is being built. So I feel like this process is being started and is in good hands for now until further notice. Then we moved on and another task about ambassador proposals, and that was kind of the last action item from this meeting item we covered. And this was about going through the document, commenting, getting insights. And what has happened meanwhile, there has been more sessions and external sessions about talking about this, how the processes kind of start rewarding themselves, what kind of roles there should be in different guilds, and how should they be budgeted. So the next step was to look at the new version, what also Hedelf brought up, and a bit of an aggregation of that information. We talked a bit about like creating a requirement to read and go through the document before the next Treasury Guild. But now at the end, it feels like that is not actually required because there is not much to read. But just for heads up, we kind of covered what do we want to get out of that. So we have some kind of expectation from goal. So at least one decision for this high level group, and there's basically as much of like groups to figure out the starting budgets for these guilds to work with, and then one by one going through these guilds and answering who, what, how, why, where, and when are these things happening to give the initial kind of starting point for this. One thing which it didn't cover in process guild, but what did happen in between the groups was we worked with Ian on the translation onboarding processes. We changed a bit of a process to include that we're going to add translator ambassador role to already after interview, so they can start applying to the translations. It made the process a bit more smoother. We went over the process again with Ian just to clarify all the context of where things happen, what and just fine-tuning the process itself a little, and also looking at how to level it up, which actually will start next week. Or at least I start planning the level up process for translators to veteran translators next week. And after that, even further onboarding from, I don't know what's the next step after veteran translator, perhaps the ambassador program itself, so that the translators themselves can start onboarding other translators and checking the quality. And then basically that would be the full loop to get the initial people who set up the system to kind of step away and let's see how the community can take over and lead the translators group. And I heard a bit that today it's like, maybe it's a translation guild, and I think that would be a great name for that. One of the biggest things we actually touched this process guild, I know this has been on much longer than 5 minutes already, I guess, is these 4 main questions. So most important areas ambassador program should be focusing on, and these were main facilitators, enforcing structures, and vetting process. And I guess enforcing structures now goes along with the vetting process, because if we dive more into that, the first question was, how do we reach quality level? And what is quality level is ambassador program members should be people who we would also send to Singularity Net panels to talk to the rest of the world. So that means we want actually quite high quality on that. And then who should do this vetting process then? And right now, we kind of established that everybody who picks up financially rewarded tasks and roles should go through this process. And how should the process vetting be liked? We came down to like 3 elements and 1 example module on the left side, using the Singularity Net translation process as a starting point, and that's a visual representation what it could look like. But basically what's needed, all having an interview meeting, creating small tasks before we do the meeting, and timing questions, answer the course. We did bring up 3 action items. What are the interview questions? What tasks should we do for onboarding? Time questions, timed question answer course, and to people to go through. And this is something we can go through next meeting if these are still relevant and nobody has done it meanwhile between the week. Yeah, that were our topics tonight. We did have like a question, where is strategy and treasury starting? And I starkly had one sticky head. Hopefully this will be clarified over time, and I think this perhaps is not that important to be answered at current moment. I think both strategy and treasury should have even the same meetings and discussions if the people are different and if it's necessary. And yeah, final note which was brought up was we have insights on how other network ambassador programs are run. And that is a great document to look through to get more insight. Actually, now when we think about it, great requirement to create document through, though, I will be sharing after this in the call, this one. But yeah, that was conclusion for this process guild. And first time we actually prepared already in next upcoming activity, which will be create meta standard for onboarding processes in modules. So basically this onboarding process we set up we could try to create it as a framework that whenever a new quilt is spinning up, that process either could be used or parts of that could be used to vet the members who are going to take up the tasks under that quilt. This covers our call on today, Process Quilt 14 March. Thank you for watching. See you out there.